And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Bullying was once a silent epidemic which was endured by millions of children on a daily basis. The attitude, kids will be kids, was just part of normal childhood development. Now, bullying in schools is being recognized as a national problem for all students. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 2000.
Issues of bullying and conflict in schools has been ongoing, but with the recent suicides of children who were being bullied at school, once again the situation has raised awareness that this is a serious issue.
Bullying, there's definitely a crime there. It's more than just a name. It sounds like a name we just forget about, that people were injured, but we see in Calgary where a young boy was bullied and then eventually stabbed in the neck and killed. We see a number of these incidents down in the Lower Mainland where it's happening, and we have to acknowledge it here. Terrace is a small community, and we can beat it just by doing something about it.
And something is being done in the schools. Meet Marianne Lawrence, a grade 5 teacher and facilitator of a province-wide anti-bullying program. Lawrence travels throughout the province working with teachers on implementing the program focused on bullying. Lawrence's school also has adopted the program.
This is the one from this group. Sarah is in grade 2. Paul and Abbas are in grade 5. They often walk behind her in the schoolyard and talk about all the hurtful things they'll do to her if they see her after school. Often, Sarah is crying after school. How many think that's bullying? I think you hit that one on the head. That's right.
Someone like Marianne Lawrence is an asset to our community because of the fact she's been in the schools for a number of years. She knows the situations that kids deal with. She's an excellent communicator. She's able to connect with kids in a way that many of us wish we could. And I think she's, one of the things I've seen Marianne do is be able to teach kids skills and then have the kids use those skills. And that's exactly what we want to do with an issue like bullying. Have someone show the kids how to deal with it in a positive way.
Many schools have included the subject of bullying in their behavior plans to address the problem.
We're trying to be proactive and to put programs and curricular kinds of instructional programs to deal with the issue of violence in schools.
A few different programs in the school system are Bully-Proofing Your School, Aggressors, Victims, and Bystanders, and Focus on Bullying.
Remember, bullying situations happen more than once. There's a person in control or more powerful than another person. It's planned and there's intent.
John Eads, who works at a local elementary school and deals with children with behavior difficulties, says they are addressing the problem directly.
When we have kids that we identify as chronic bullying or exhibiting chronic bullying behavior, will often involve community agencies such as the Ministry for Children and Families, Child and Youth Mental Health, those kinds of agencies to provide support not only directly to the children but to the families as well. So we cooperate quite well with other agencies to try to help individual kids who are having problems and also to support programs in a general sense to help raise awareness of what bullying is in schools and what we can do to teach kids how to deal with that better.
Principal Dave Bartley of Thornhill Junior Secondary feels that the issue of addressing bullying needs support from the community.
I mean, violence is a community problem. And anytime you try to solve a community problem in a vacuum, you can't solve it. And I think that's one of the things that schools certainly recognize, that it's a partnership with parents and other community agencies.
With the help of the Skeena Valley and Terrace Rotary Club and Canadian Regional Airlines, a group, 8 for One Cause, was brought up to Terrace last year to talk to school kids about ways to deal with bullying.
Their message is one of safety, of nonviolence, and of how to deal constructively in a situation if you feel that you're being victimized. Whether or not you call it bullying or other aspects of violence, even random aspects of violence, they show kids how to deal with them in a positive way.
Schools are trying to tackle the issue, but sometimes bullying becomes criminal, and then the RCMP gets involved.
Bullying becomes criminal when the person who's being bullied fears for their safety, in terms of being harassed. We can charge them under criminal harassment, where they're fearing for their life. Some damage may be done to them, whether it be to themselves, their family, their property, and they actually fear for their bodily harm.
Mary Papias, who works at a local junior high school, says female violence in schools is up.
I have seen a change in how girls relate and how they do things. Where before they would maybe take it, they don't take it anymore. And rather than them become assertive about how they feel when someone has done them wrong, they become aggressive. And it might be verbal aggression or it might be physical aggression. And that's a big change, I think, that we're seeing sort of generally in our society. And I have seen that in the last, 10 years or so.
There is a proven connection between children with bullying behaviors that don't get addressed and future criminal activity.
Well, we know from research that kids who are chronic bulliers, by the age of 24, 60% of them will have one criminal conviction. By the age of 24, 40% will have 3 or more convictions. So this isn't just a school problem. This is a community problem. And as the community becomes aware of this and participates and understands what the role of school can be in helping not only protect kids from bullying behavior, but in helping these kids who are prone to bullying kinds of behaviors find another way to have their needs be met, then we think we can be a help to the community.
In February, an anti-bullying workshop will take place in the Terrace community. The Ministry of Attorney General, Community Justice Branch, will host the secondary school workshop, Youth Taking Action. It will provide the opportunity for teams of local youth to develop youth-led presentations on the subject of anti-bullying. Although the schools are addressing the issue and workshops are in progress, Lawrence says it takes a whole community to solve the problem.
I do know that we cannot do it alone as teachers and students in a school. It's absolutely impossible. We need to know the expectations and the perceptions of the entire community. And that's not just parents, it's also people in the community who are not parents but make up the community our school's part of.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Fisheries and Oceans Canada is a department of the Government of Canada that is responsible for developing and implementing policies and programs in support of Canada's economic, ecological, and scientific interests in oceans and inland waters. Let us return to the archives as Prince Rupert Gillnetters share what they think of some of DFO's policies.
At the mouth of the Skeena, as many as 9 out of 10 steelhead trying to enter the river end up tangled in twine.
Sport fishermen say if the commercial fishery turned to fish wheels and weirs rather than gill nets, weak stocks such as steelhead could be kept alive and then released. As for claims by commercial operators that the stocks aren't in trouble, the video says the proof is in the river, or more accurately, isn't in the river. It says the steelhead are speaking volumes in this debate by their absence. These suggestions, however, are refuted in the video by commercial fishermen.
The Skeena River, BC's second most important salmon producer.
Test of the way DFO has been treating us over the sockeye issue. This is for the fleet. We're burning Donna in effigy because we can't take it anymore.
It was for this reason that we decided it was time to take a closer look at how the department puts together its management plans for the salmon fishery. David Anderson is the North Coast Chief of Fisheries Management. He says the process of putting together a fishing plan starts with stock assessment.
So we get the input on what runs are coming back, what salmon are actually spawning through our science programs, and in the fall, and then we monitor the environmental conditions, we monitor the outgoing smolts, and in the meantime we're having consultation meetings with all users, First Nations and commercial and recreational, reviewing what happened the previous season and talking about what could go on in the next season.
But how accurate can projections based on past returns be? Anderson says sometimes they're very good, sometimes not.
For instance, we have used adult spawners for many years to predict basically how many would come back in whether they're 4-year-old fish or 3-year-old fish or however many years they are. That works, but it's not great. There's also smolt output, so how many smolts are going to see that will come back in a year or 2 years, again depending on the age of the fish. In some cases that's very good, in some cases not.
As mentioned, the other part of the process is gathering input from the sectors. A lot of fishers believe the problem lies in the advisory groups. Anderson says a lot of frustrations are over policy issues.
We're looking for operational advice, like where should the boundaries be drawn, or what day should we fish? Should we fish on the 18th or should we fish on the 12th? And the fishermen know which days they want to fish, and we basically accept that information. That's what we go with. What they get frustrated with is when they say, well, a policy issue, we should favor the commercial fishermen over the sport fishermen. Well, I certainly know that we have a policy to go by, and we follow that policy. So that's where they get frustrated, and they think, well, we never listen. Well, we listen, and we hear them, but we do have policy. We also have law, of course, with the First Nations.
The DFO has recently started working on developing a new decision-making policy and will be seeking input on the best way for the various sector groups to provide advice to the process.
That's what we really want. If it's policy that they're frustrated about, then there should be maybe there should be a policy forum where they can express their views, and then in a group, a mixed group, and we can make a decision then. Hopefully the decision will be consensus made for us. If the clients come together and if it protects the fish and the resource, that's the ideal thing. But when one group is pitted against another group, that's when it makes it really difficult for us.
Once all of the scientific data and input from the sector groups is gathered, the department starts to put together a draft fishing plan. To a large extent, that plan is based on past fisheries.
Because past years, of course, have been fishing this close for many, many years, so the timing of the openings and whatnot is all based on fish runs, average timing runs. So we put together draft plans on, this is what we think we could do. If there's any outstanding concerns, for instance, with the upper Skeena coho, a few years ago it was very, very much of a concern, still a concern, and some of the other stocks, steelhead, etc. So we have to mitigate the impact on those species. So we put all this together in plan, and it's usually a draft plan. Then we put it out, then we do the consultation again. Everybody gets input, and it results in a fishing plan.
Of course, this year there were changes made to the fishing plan mid-season because of strong returns of sockeye and coho. First Nations and recreational fishers were given extra opportunities on coho as per DFO policy. Seiners were allowed 8 more days and gillnetters 2 to harvest sockeye. The gillnetters took exception to this and protested, saying the department was cheating them.
And the way decisions are made is pretty well a group decision. There's input from my staff, my biologists, fish managers, and we're getting information from the grounds, what the run looks like. During the summer when it's so hectic, there's a huge amount of information overload. So we have to take all this information, digest it, and figure out where we are and whether what we're doing meets policy and protects the fish mainly.
Of course, because the situation had become volatile, the decision on whether or not more fishing time was going to be granted was raised to the political level.
The minister obviously has the ultimate authority on this kind of thing, but also has an obligation to protect the species and runs of fish. So there was no real disagreement within the department. As I said, the minister obviously has ultimate authority. He's the boss in these matters, but there was no disagreement. We were following policy, we were protecting the runs, we were providing, we had provided quite a good fishing season already to the fleet and to the other sectors as well.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. The way we talk to or about people is important because it reflects our attitudes and assumptions. Ideally, we should refer to people in the language that they prefer. However, terminology changes from time to time because certain words and phrases take on a pejorative connotations. Let us return to the archives with Sieghard Weitzel.
And I thought I better put that in because if we ever do end up ordering colors, then you want to distinguish it somehow, right? So, yeah. Okay. Done.
His name is Sieghard Weitzel. He's a successful businessman and an outdoor enthusiast who hikes, runs, and downhill skis. So what, you say? Just another individual with lots of interests. But this man is different. He runs his business and participates in just about every kind of sport without being able to see anything. The accident that left him blind occurred when he was a teenager. He and a friend had an active interest in making different types of explosives, and one day it went too far.
One fine January day in 1984, I guess we were just not careful enough with our explosive that we built, and it was a pipe bomb, and it went off while I was holding it in my hand, and therefore it destroyed my hands almost completely. And what I have now is I have, thanks to an incredible physician who specializes on hand injuries.
But Sieghard says at no point did he want to give up. He just had to adapt. And adapt he did. He traveled around the world, then attended the University of Calgary and received a bachelor's degree in commerce, specializing in tourism and marketing. And just last spring, he opened up his outdoor essentials store in Smithers, complete with a specialized computer and equipment, which enables him to run his store efficiently and effectively.
I don't think without the computer system I could even run the business, or, you know, if I were to run the business without it, it would require a lot more attention or people. I would need probably a full-time person here to help me do things.
His computer comes complete with software called JAWS, or Job Access with Speech, and Sieghard uses it with just about every kind of computer program.
I can use just about any Windows application, such as Microsoft Office, Excel, Simply Accounting, email programs. I use Eudora Pro for my email, and it lets me read all my email, send all my email. I can just navigate around Windows, you know, do maintenance stuff. DFODAY space IS space FONDAY and then period. Enter. So every keystroke I do, it will echo.
But Sieghard has about 1 million other things on the go as well. One is an active interest in woodworking. In fact, he's built much of the furniture in his store.
And the front, I'm just finishing that. I just made these cedar panels here that will go in front.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
It all started when Jean Emir, a ski instructor in Aspen, Colorado, lost his sight through diabetes. A few years after losing his sight in 1969, he wanted to ski again. His friends and colleagues at the ski school assisted him and guided him safely down the mountain. In his final segment of Open Connection, Sieghard shares why he loves to ski.
Another one of his passions is downhill skiing, and other than a few spills here and there in the past, it remains one of his favorite sports.
Downhill skiing is sort of a sport that many people don't really see as a blind person's sport, although there's many blind people out there that downhill ski, many visually impaired people that still have some vision, and that's a little different. They, for them it's maybe a little bit easier if they can see somebody 20, 30 feet ahead of them. In my case, I was a downhill skier before I became blind, and so for me, downhill skiing, I didn't have to learn. I just had to adapt to doing it as a blind person.
He uses a special radio when he skis, something like a telephone headset. His ski partner wears one set, he the other, and they can communicate while skiing, just as if they were talking face to face.
So this radio is basically the headset that I use to talk to the person who's guiding me. So, whoever is guiding me will announce the turns that I have to do, left, right, and also whether it's going to be a hard left or a hard right or just a little adjustment or, so, and when to stop before I run people over.
So what I do, like I have contact with him, like he'll be skiing in front of me, and I tell him where to go, and he can hear me. So if there's a problem, I just tell him to stop. And
they test their equipment to make sure everything is working, and then it's off to the slopes.
All right. So once you push, you'll have to go to your left a little bit.
To the left a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Not too much. Just less than that. Go back to your right a little bit. Yeah. Right ahead.
Coming down the mountain, you can hardly tell one skier from another. Everyone goes on their merry way. And it's no different in Sieghard's case. He's as comfortable on skis as he is anywhere else.
So how is JF guiding you there?
Well, very good. JF said he hit a rock, I didn't, so that's good.
Except for when I was telling him to go left and he was supposed to go right, it was okay. I got mixed up a little bit in my saying. But he wasn't listening to me, so it was great. I'd say left, he'd go right.
It's just like my psychic capabilities.
So now that he's accomplished so much, what does he say to the skeptics who doubt him?
I probably ran into a few people that maybe didn't outright say this, but sort of implied that maybe it's very difficult or impossible to do this, or for that matter, to do other things. Sports and outdoor type sports, and woodworking is another one, which is a hobby of mine. And I generally say to these people that running a business, a large part of running a business is having a certain amount of intelligence and having a bit of a business sense, and I feel that I do have a business sense. I'm certainly an entrepreneurial type of person. I much rather have my own business than work for somebody else.
No doubt Sieghard will continue to succeed in business and in sport, and he'll continue to amaze many who get to know him.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Picktown.